everybody. Welcome to episode 8.
Hey. Hi.
Our podcast.
What is it? Are
It's
you there, guys?
it's a podcast. Hello. It's a podcast where we watch episodes of the best show ever, Unsolved Mysteries, and we each take a case or two and research them to tell the stories more in depth and provide updates. We are watching on Amazon Prime, so it's easy to follow along with us because the numbers of the episodes match up with the one we're talking about. To see photos we reference in the episode, follow us on Instagram at @re_solved mysteries, on Facebook at Resolve the Pod, and on Twitter at Resolve the Pod. You can contact us at resolvedmysteriespodcast.com. If you like us, please rate and review on iTunes. For this month, every review we receive, we're going to donate $1 to CASA, which stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. When a child who has been abused or neglected is going through the trauma of removal and involvement in a juvenile dependency case, a CASA advocate is tirelessly working to guide them through safely, quickly, and effectively. Also, this month, for every review we receive and every dollar we donate, we'll match the amount. So, what's everybody talking about in this episode?
Who's first?
I'm first.
Whoa.
I have the disappearance and probable murder of Christi Nichols.
Did the husband do it?
It's a true husband did it, most likely, story.
Mm-hmm.
Our favorite / least favorite kind.
Yeah, really.
I have the story of a San Quentin prison escape, which is the story of Mark Adams.
That's exciting. I have a finance story.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's medium, almost as exciting as Sports Ball was in episode, 5?
And set in the same town.
And it's in the same town. So, Medford, can we talk? Because you're a mess when it comes to investing.
What's happening there?
I have no idea.
And then I'm really going to bring us all down in the 4th segment for a very, very heartbreaking story about the murder of 4-year-old Barbara Jean Horn. Sorry.
Thanks,
She's
UM.
such a sweetie.
All right.
So we are still running our contest for school pictures. We have gotten a couple of entries. I appreciate it. That I'm
Have
not
we really?
on Facebook, ladies.
Oh, gotta check that.
And 2 of the entries we got, I think they're friends because they went into like pretty adorable detail.
Cute.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, even though on Instagram it's just me and bad like Brian, on Facebook we are getting some participants. It goes until January 1st if you guys want to get in on it. And it's humiliating.
But also potentially rewarding.
Yeah, with a tote bag and an extra little surprise that we're working on. So if you want to participate in it on Instagram, please, how do we do this again?
So you are going to use the hashtag resolve to be awkward, and you're also going to tag us at @re_solved mysteries.
Yeah. And if you're on Facebook, you can just go to our Facebook page and put it in the comments. You don't have to tag it or anything because that's what people have been doing. And it's pretty fucking cute, I gotta say.
I love it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Send them to us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Okay. So, in other awesome news, we raised $300 for Outside In November, thanks to the Found Money. And we received, I think, 19 or 20 reviews, and we matched that. So altogether, I think it's about $300, which is super awesome.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, right? Isn't that super? I couldn't believe it.
It's the best.
Yeah. I thought we had 2 reviews, and then I went and checked and did the math. It's like, oh, that's awesome.
People are listening to us when we beg.
I know. We just have to be like, please. Please review us.
But just remember that your review not only helps us, but also helps an awesome nonprofit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to probably do that this week at some point because it's holiday times. So, you know. But yes, so it's about $300. It's going to Outside In, awesome charity that we all really love here in Portland. And again, like KB said, if you review us this month, it's going to go to CASA, which is another amazing local charity. And we're going to match it for December as well. Because, you know, holiday feelsies. So thanks. You're the best.
Okay. So this is segment 1 of episode 8, and it's a missing persons segment. And this is the story of Christi Nichols. So Christi Nichols was a 22-year-old woman who lived in Gothenburg, Nebraska, with her husband Mark and their 2 children, a daughter and son. Gothenburg was a very small town in 1987 with only about 3,000 people living there. And I didn't look up if more people have moved there since then, but it doesn't really matter. So it'll come into play that it's a small town later as I keep telling you the story. Christi married Mark when she was 19 years old, and people around her described her as quiet but very kind and loving of her children. Her mother is on the episode being interviewed, and she says that Christi always had a bit of a negative self-image, but she loved her kids, and that's kind of what helped her feel proud of herself, and she just never would run away from them or just leave them of her own volition.
No, and I think having children, she felt like she was a good mother. It was a point of pride for her.
Yeah.
Like her mother specifically says that she said, no one can do this job better than I can. You know?
Yeah, so then in comes Mark, her husband,
The dead-eyed monster.
the garbage man. So he's featured on this.
No offense to garbage men, literally.
Oh, God, no, we didn't mean it like that. No.
Oh
We
my
didn't mean it
gosh,
like
no,
that.
I didn't mean
No.
it
A
like
man
that at all.
made of garbage.
A man made of garbage.
He's
not
like,
a
We
garbage
appreciate you,
man.
sanitation workers.
Oh, please, of course. No. Mark is just actually a piece of garbage.
And he looks like a Neanderthal.
And he sounds like Joel Kaler.
Really big forehead.
Remind me to talk about that a little bit later, because Reddit and sitcoms online are all over this story, and basically everyone just makes fun of how he talks.
Yeah.
And it
which
has
is he
nothing
sound-
to do with, but
No.
yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with that.
Although, I mean, I noted that he sounded like a straight up sociopath because there was no emotion.
Oh yeah, no, that
his
for
speaking.
sure. People on sitcoms online are like, he's got this accent and he's an idiot because he has a little bit of
No,
a southern
that's
accent. It's like,
stupid.
this is so
No.
stupid. You are just making this stereotype of Southern people are stupid. Go
Yeah.
further. Also,
No.
he's not from the
To
South.
me, it was
so I
the
don't
complete
know.
and utter lack of emotion that
Me
was
too, and
troubling.
that's why I thought of
Absolutely.
Joel Kaler, because it was a complete disassociation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
maybe and someone being like, "This is the story. I
Yeah.
do not know why things
Why
happen."
would she do this to
Yeah,
me?
exactly.
Yeah.
It was just like deadpan.
The deadest eyes.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, if there were ever a textbook case of the husband did it. So, yeah, speaking of Joel Kaler, go back and listen to our first episode because he's also another example of the husband did it, but claims the wife just ran away. Okay,
Joel.
so about 10 days before she went missing, Christi goes to the ER to have an injury checked out that she obtained while fighting with Mark. The doctor that treated her noticed how scared she seemed and how she did not want to give a lot of details about what had happened. She said she was like a scared rabbit.
She was so small. When they give her
Yeah.
like stats, what is she, 5'9", and she weighs 120 pounds?
Yeah, very thin. Mark claimed that he'll tell the story of the fight. Don't worry. So
yeah.
he claimed that he was trying to keep her from going out because he thought she was having an affair, and she got upset with him and started to hit and kick him. This
Well, he says
thin
he
little
knew
thing.
she was having an affair.
Yeah.
Like it was
yeah. So, so she hits and kicks him, and then in the midst of this fight, she burned him with a cigarette that she had in her hand, burned him on the neck, and that's when he tossed her on the waterbed, and her thumb got twisted underneath her and must have gotten hurt that way.
Was there a waterbed, like a waterbed thing?
Oh, one of my best
Oh.
friends had a waterbed.
Okay,
Is that what you
really?
mean? Oh, yeah, we used
My
to sleep on
aunt-
it always.
Okay, there is nothing good about a waterbed.
No,
That is
it's
not good
horrible
for
to
your
sleep
body.
on. No.
It's not good for your body. It's not good for your relationship. Anytime someone rolls over, they wake
Yeah.
you up. You're
No.
constantly just bobbing around.
You get seasick.
Do they still sell? What a
This
weird
episode
thing.
is sponsored by Casper Mattress. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Can you imagine? Casper sells all their regular mattresses, but then also a waterbed that is not folded up in a small package. It's a giant, very heavy waterbed that comes to your door. Okay, so he claims he threw her on the waterbed, and that's how her thumb got twisted underneath her. I call bullshit. Christy's cousin also comes on. Her name's Deborah, and she explains that she knew Mark was abusive. Christi had confided to her that he abused her fairly often. She had also seen a bruise that was on Christi's side that Christi had shown her. And Deborah told Christi to go and get help and was very afraid for her. And so maybe part of that help is that 2 days before her disappearance, Christi had made an appointment with a divorce lawyer out of town. So she was so afraid that Mark would find out because Gothenburg was a small town and they probably would have said, hey, I saw Christi going into this attorney's office. What's going on? So she had to make an appointment out of town.
Small towns are they brutal? It seems like they're brutal.
I mean, it's just so you run the risk of everyone knowing what you're doing.
People act like cities are dangerous, but at least you have like a level
Oh,
of
yeah.
anonymity.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially
We
when
come
you're
from
in
a
an
small town, so.
when you're in an abusive relationship and you don't want your husband to find out
Yeah.
that you're trying to divorce him.
Yeah.
So the out-of-town lawyer's name was Claude Barrickman, and he's on this episode. He's a true sweetie. He's like 100% on Christi's side.
Totally.
Yep.
So sweet. So he is on here and he describes Christi as very distressed and nervous. He said he's handled hundreds of divorces and she was within the top 5 of the most distressed wives he had ever had in his office.
Yeah, he even says, hopefully I'm not
You're good.
skipping you, but he says she had made an appointment with him so he can't see that she was getting ready to leave.
Yeah, and she talked to him about the abuse in her marriage, and Claude says it alarmed him so much that he even called the authorities to report it.
That's
Good
crazy.
boy.
Which then I couldn't really find anything about like the police having, a service, like a call, a domestic abuse call on Mark, and then they were able to use that against him. Like, I just couldn't find anything like that. Also, this is again the late 80s. So he says she was nervous that day, but not so panicked. Yeah, like you said, that she seemed ready to run, and she made another appointment with him. So it didn't seem like she's just going to start this divorce paperwork and then up and leave, because that would not help her get custody of the kids.
No.
So-
No.
Okay, so the next day, which is December 10th, which is the day this episode comes out, I just realized. The Nichols family does some Christmas shopping together. So Mark and Christi and their 2 kids, they go see Santa, and they go to have Pizza Hut for dinner. And Mark claims that he was very uncomfortable that day because he just sensed a lot of anger coming from Christi towards him.
There is no way, if you're a mom that's about to ditch out, you don't do it 15 fucking days before Christmas.
No.
Yeah.
No person does that. All of this is so clearly a lie.
And also, fear would be the main emotion, not anger.
Of course.
Yeah, he is just trying to say she was angry to cover up to give a reason for why she'd want to leave that night. But then it doesn't work out very well for him saying that, because then he says they hired a babysitter and they went out to the bar where Christi worked as a part-time bartender to play pool. And then Mark says, well, that evening everything was great and they were laughing and, quote, carrying on.
Bullshit.
Yeah. If you are going to stick with the she was mad at me story, just keep that going.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Be like, she dragged me out to her bar
right.
to play
Yeah,
pool, and I
good
felt
point.
like I had to do it. Not like, I sensed a lot of anger during the day, but then
that
at night.
Yeah.
I just want to prove that she wasn't mad at me.
The babysitter, her name is Diane Jensen. She is a true teenage queen.
Oh my God. Talk about a super sleuth. She's like fucking
Yes.
Nancy Drew.
Oh,
She's
I
like,
love her.
I love her.
Well, and talk about small towns. So she says she was surprised that they called her to watch the kids so they could go out because she knew they hadn't been getting along.
Yeah. What
So,
is a
hello, small town.
16-year-old
girl?
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
But also, really quickly, she has a perm, and it's tucked behind her ears, forming a perm mullet.
Yes. But
Okay.
she's beautiful.
I love how Garland
She's
does
super
the hair.
cute, though.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't even notice her hair because all I heard was her like sass and condescension.
love her. Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
she was
like-
very honest. I was surprised with the amount she was willing to tell.
Well, I totally felt for her because I babysat so much as a middle schooler and teenager, and I can't imagine this happening. That would be horrible. I'll explain what happens, but she's just a queen. She's amazing. She's watching the kids. Mark and Christi are apparently having a great time at this bar. They leave the bar around midnight.
Playing pool.
Again, remember, all this information comes from Mark. They leave the bar around midnight, and they stop by a convenience store shortly after. At 12:30, they headed home. Okay, so according to Diane, the babysitter, Mark got home between 12:30 and 1. She was doing her homework in front of the TV when he arrived. Mark claims that Christi came in the house before him and went straight down the hall into the bathroom. Diane, the babysitter, says that she never saw or heard Christi come in. I have a clip that I want you to put in right here.
I really can't believe that I didn't see her, because I would have heard footsteps and I would have heard her go into the bathroom, because I was there,
Thanks.
I mean, between 5 and 10 minutes, so that I would have been able to hear Christi somehow. But I didn't hear or see Christi.
I'm the
She's also
babysitter.
like, she wouldn't have come in and not said hi to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Also, while you're gone, I go through your shit, man. I know what's happening.
That is the best part of babysitting.
Thank you. I'll cut that.
I never.
Don't ever.
You never?
You never.
Oh.
Well, I never babysat, but I would just want to rifle.
Diane also thought it was strange that Mark paid her in cash, as Christi was always the one who paid her, and she always paid with a check. Like, Diane is just already, as a young woman, trusting her own instincts and thinking, this is weird and I'm going to say something about it.
Yes,
Versus a lot of women who are like, this is weird, but it's probably fine. It's probably nothing. Carlin, like you were saying, there would just be no reason for Christi to at least not say something to Diane as she walked by. Even if like, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, bye. That's all
I
she
have
would
to go
have to
throw
say.
up. I'll be in the bathroom.
Yeah. Like, unless you're like,
Carlin's like, I
maybe.
see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
We'll slam.
Even if she wasn't going to be the one that paid her, she would say something like, oh, he's coming in, he'll give you the check or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mark is a little bit dumb because she didn't see her, and
Right.
she's saying, I didn't even hear her. She wasn't there. Her being able to say, no, everybody, she did not come, and I would have heard her.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he was banking on her,
Oh, he
the
was.
babysitter, just believing him that she went right down
He
the
was
hallway.
like, she's a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love her. So Mark claims that Christi went to bed right away when they got home, and the last time he saw her was at 2 a.m. when he went to bed next to her. So the next morning, when his kids wake him up, he looks over.
Oh, right. He's like, my kids woke me up.
Yeah.
Like he's never had to make fucking breakfast
Totally,
before.
because she's usually awake, probably.
Also, that's when we see the clip of the waterbed. And I was like, ew. What? Ew.
Bloop, bloop, bloop.
He's like, sorry, I'm having trouble getting out of this bed.
Like, oh, give me 10 minutes. I'll meet you downstairs. My lower back is a mess.
He looks over. She's not in the bed. The reenactment is him just walking all around the house, calling her name. He can't find her anywhere.
I love how he's walking around this house. It's probably like 7 rooms,
Yes.
maybe, all together.
He claims he notices a suitcase and some of her belongings are missing, even though both of the family cars are still in the driveway.
Sorry, but if that was me, like my partner was suddenly just not there in the morning, it would probably take me all day to be like, maybe I should check if they took a suitcase. That would never be the first thing I would look for.
Okay, so here's where his suspicious behavior really picks up if it hasn't been suspicious so far. So at 9:30, which is like an hour or two after he realizes she's gone, he says, Christi's mom calls, and even though he knows she's gone, he says, he tells her that Christi is still in bed asleep. She's not feeling well. So if she were really just missing or left, why would he not tell that mother immediately? Like if he was really worried about it.
He didn't want to worry her.
Right, of course not. So it makes sense that he needed time to think about what to do about this, like,
yes,
or cover his story versus all of a sudden raising the alarm with the mom. So he just wants to say she's in bed to buy him a little bit more time to like think out what he's gonna do. A few hours later at 11:30, he takes the kids over to Christi's grandmother's house, bringing the kids over unannounced and asking if she would watch them while he went to look for Christi. He never asked if the grandmother had seen or heard from Christi, which is the very first thing you would do if you're like, hey, can you watch my kids? By the way, have you seen her, Christi, before I apparently drive all over town to look for her?
Yeah. And once again, not telling her that she's missing.
No.
Yeah.
So
And I love how she's like, it was weird. Like,
yeah,
she's
because,
just
well,
like, no joke.
I think the grandmother did watch the kids fairly often, but she said they always called and said that, and they had a plan. So he didn't even want...
Like, you don't just bring your kid over to your mother's house, your mother-in-law's house. You call ahead.
Yeah, but it's like he didn't even want to call and tell her because that would buy him less time.
Yeah. So he, like, definitely minimized it with both family members.
Okay, so then he claims that he spent about 2 hours driving around town looking for Christi. Police afterwards ask around Gothenburg, again, very small town. Not one single person says they saw him driving around during this time. Not one. At 1:30, Mark goes to the police station and files a missing persons report with the police. This is December 11th. The next day, on December 12th, Mark moves out of the house.
Yes!
What? Just totally normal behavior, you know.
It's like, oh, sorry we keep coming back to this. And please listen to episode 1 if you haven't. But Jewel Kaler.
Yeah, exactly. He does the same thing.
The first indication is running.
Yeah. Also, if you're starting to think she is gone forever, maybe you'd want to like be in your house that was her house for a little while and like mourn a little bit there. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, what would a defense attorney say? Like, everyone grieves differently. Everyone deals with the scenario differently.
Yeah.
But like, no. No one would lose a wife and then a day and a half later move.
Are you kidding? Moving is the worst.
Yeah.
No
Unless
one
you
would
like
do
saw
that.
her.
Moving is the worst anyway.
Unless you saw her killed in the house, then yes, you want to do that. But
Sure.
Yeah. So he moves out of the house. A few weeks later, he boxes up all of her clothes and sells both, not just one, both of their cars.
Can you imagine?
All I have is just why in capitals with a question mark and an exclamation. He could not look more guilty. And yet, just wait. So a few months later, along a highway 30 miles west of Gothenburg, the suitcase that Mark had apparently reported missing from their home was found along with her purse. Mark had detailed everything that would be in the suitcase. Every single one of the items of clothing that Christi had taken with her. When the suitcase was found, everything was inside, which will happen when you're the one who packs the goddamn suitcase.
and what kind of a dummy thinks that's a good thing to say?
The detective being like, I've been married for 1 billion years.
Yeah.
And I would not know what was missing from my wife's closet if she took off.
Yeah,
Like,
so
he's like,
that detective's name is Terry Ahrens, and he says everyone on the scene knew that the suitcase had just been placed there.
Staged.
So it would be found, and he says, yeah, like you said, if his wife had left him, he would have no way of knowing what was missing from her closet.
would?
I wouldn't. If my
would
partner
ask.
went missing, I would not know.
I was going to say that too. I would not.
No. I would be like, I don't know, 7 weird, quirky t-shirts.
yeah,
and-
yeah. You could make some guesses probably, but
Yeah.
not an exact inventory of the
This is a
suitcase.
good detective episode.
He clearly most likely packed the suitcase after he killed his wife to make it look like she had run away. Okay, here comes
Just regroup.
Here comes the update.
Yay.
Wait. You're not going to say his crazy quotes?
What quotes?
Oh my fucking God. I said he very lackadaisically says that there are rumors he chopped her up and put her in garbage bags. And that one really got to me. But he says it with no emotion, like less emotion than what I just said.
That's one I wanted you to put in, actually.
People in small towns, they talk a lot. And a lot of these rumors tend to get pretty vicious. There's been a couple rumors that I'd chopped her up and put her in garbage bags and buried her at the dump. That's one of the first ones I heard. And that one really got to me. Because I guess they were actually up there digging around.
And then he also said, a lot of people think I'm a violent person. I'm not. Why would you call out that a lot of people think you're a violent person?
That's
He is
right.
such an idiot.
Okay, so
Update.
there's not really an update, everybody.
What the fuck?
Mark, never arrested. Christi, never been found.
What?
It is rumored that Christi was seeing other men, and a letter was found addressed to a man saying she was going to leave Mark after Christmas. Okay, just
Mark
like you were
found that
saying.
letter.
So they don't have, that man's name is not public, but the police did clear him of anything to do with her disappearance.
Just because you have an affair doesn't mean you deserve to be murdered 2 weeks before Christmas.
And just like you were saying, she wouldn't leave them before. She was going to wait until after. And she wasn't going to probably leave her children. If this letter is even real, she was going to take them. Yeah.
It's also okay if you're having an affair when your husband is abusive.
Yeah.
Like,
There are so many. This is such a zero judgment zone.
Starting the divorce proceedings too, like she's doing everything correctly.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
So yes, most
I just
likely,
can't believe no DNA, nothing.
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Okay,
Especially
so-
for what a dummy he is.
Well, okay, so there were reports that blood was found in both their bedroom and in the trunk of Mark's car.
What?
Both of which Mark claimed was period blood.
I hate when I get my period in the trunk of my car. It's like super inconvenient.
Worst when that happens.
Yeah.
And I saw one thing that, because I think that forensics even then could tell whether it was period menstrual blood or not,
course
and
it can.
it wasn't. I mean, people go crazy for this story. Like sitcoms online and Reddit, like I said, it's unbelievable because I swear I have heard some stories where there is even less evidence than this. So the question kind of becomes, when did he dispose of her body? There are a couple options. He clearly most likely killed her in between going to the convenience store and heading home, which is why the babysitter did not see or hear her come in the house because she was probably in the trunk of the car. But that would not leave a lot of time to dispose of her body, like in between the convenience store and home. So did he leave her body in the trunk while he went in to pay the babysitter and then left the house again while his kids slept overnight?
Yes. 100%.
Or did he wait until dropping the kids off at Christy's grandmother's house and then dispose
what
of
I
her
kinda
body
thought.
then? But that would be the daylight. And that would also
That's
mean
true.
his kids were driving around in the car with their mother's body in the trunk.
I don't think that happened. I think that he dumped the suitcase after he dropped the kids off.
Yeah.
But he murdered her and he fucking dumped her that night. Like went back out. Either
And,
she was in
they
the
got
trunk.
back kind of late, too. So.
Yeah.
There have been extensive searches of Gothenburg and the area, and nothing's ever been found. Get this, in 1990, Mark filed for divorce from his wife, which he could do since she was never declared dead or hadn't been declared dead at that time.
Well, that was like Jewel Killer trying to fight,
yeah,
Dottie being deceased.
Yep, it's so similar.
It is so similar. And that's how it's textbook. And that's how we know that the husband fucking did.
Yes, and this lucky ass guy has gotten away. He's still walking free. He's since remarried,
Oh, great. I hope she doesn't make him mad.
but I can't find him or her, whether that lasted or not, and also his poor kids. So literally every message on those message boards are like just how unbelievable it is that he got away with murder when
know,
other
it's
people haven't.
crazy.
And
So I don't fully understand if we have a listener out there that is obviously well-versed in legalese, because this is where I always sort of lose it, but I'm really interested in why a case where there's circumstantial evidence, but also blood evidence in a trunk.
But
how is
blood
that
and
not?
evidence is totally circumstantial, too. You could easily say
How do you
she cut her
bleed in the
hand while
trunk?
doing something camping and we were packing the car. Like, there's so many stories you could come
But
up with.
That depends on the prosecutor. It
think
depends on
about
the
making a
prosecutor.
murder.
Yes. I think it has to do, and I'm learning this from listening to Truth and Justice, it has to do with the prosecutor and how aggressive they are, how much they want it, and maybe they were just like, this was a woman having an affair. She's gone.
Yeah.
I don't want to fucking do this.
That's gonna come up in the fourth segment too, like all about the DA being the
Yeah.
powerhouse behind some things.
Yeah.
So
Wow, I really thought that you were going to be
I
like,
for sure did.
yeah, it's very maddening.
That's
no.
So
As disappointed as we are, I can't imagine how disappointed you were. Because it's heartbreaking.
with this segment, then my other segment's very depressing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say two things. I just thought that this was not interesting, mostly horrifying. I found an annual report called When Men Murder Women, and it's put out by the Violence Policy Center. It details the reality of homicides committed against females by single male offenders. And this is a study from 2015 data put out in 2017. So I'm just going to read a little thing because it's kind of interesting and proving the point of women are most often killed by partners. So the relationship of victim to offender differs significantly between male and female victims of homicide. Compared to a man, a woman is far more likely to be killed by her spouse, an intimate acquaintance, or a family member than by a stranger. For homicides in which the victim to offender relationship could be identified, so like sometimes they just didn't know how they knew each other, 93% of female victims were murdered by someone they knew.
Wow. That's
14 times as many females were murdered by a male they knew than were killed by strangers.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're so obsessed with serial killers, and that's because we feel better.
Yeah.
We feel better with the randomness than the reality.
Yeah,
that
that's right.
93%
So
of
interesting.
us are murdered by someone that we know.
Yeah.
So, of victims who knew their offenders, 64% were wives, common law wives, ex-wives, or girlfriends of the offenders. About 3 females per day are murdered by a current or former partner in the United
Jesus
States.
fucking Christ.
Oh.
Yeah. So, this we will link to this. It's so interesting. Obviously, very depressing. But they even have a section about Black female victims. They go into it based on gender and race and just all these interesting things. They have the states listed as most likely. Alaska's number 1. Most likely per capita or per like 100,000 women. Alaska's the number 1. Females murdered by men.
Makes sense.
So, and then just real quick, I wanted to also, this was a good idea that Allison had, just wanted to call out the National Domestic Violence Hotline, the hotline.org. They also have an online chat. If you can't talk on the phone with someone hearing you, you can chat online. Or they also do have
A phone number.
that
1-800-799 SAFE or 7233. And if you are in any way in a scenario where you feel like you're in danger, the alternative is a lot harder.
Well,
So
and I was going to
please,
say, even if you are not the abused person,
if you know anyone,
if, for example, it is your cousin and they're telling you they've been abused, please tell somebody.
Yeah, because maybe she would have told somebody, but not in 1983.
Right.
Yeah,
She didn't even know how to do that.
No. The only thing that we can do is give you a little bit more information in case you encounter a scenario like this.
Yeah. So, with some of these that are not updated, if there is ever something that comes up, in the year or years to come, I will let you know. So I'll let you know if anything ever happens with finding Christi or hopefully Mark getting put away forever. So that's the disappearance and probable murder of Christi Nichols.
That was great work.
Good job.
God, these keep getting sadder and sadder.
I know.
Still listening?
Are you guys there?
Are you
Is
guys
anybody there? Did you turn it off?
If not, it's fine.
Should we have merch tissues we can
my
send to everyone so they can just
that's a
cry while they
great
listen to our
idea.
episodes?
Oh my God, yes.
That's a great idea.
If you email us and get on an email list, I'll send you a small package
Yes.
of tissues.
If we're making you cry, you get tissues.
Yeah.
Are we recording? I really, really, really want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. Segment 2 is a wanted segment, and it is the San Quentin escape of Mark Adams. So, San Quentin, as described by Robert Stack, is one of the country's most secure, maximum security prisons.
Oh, can you imagine if prison
It's
was
like
a
a
prison?
rainbow.
It's a secure prison. Stack says that few cameras have ever been allowed inside, but UM was granted permission to film there, which is kind of crazy. In the summer of 1986, Mark Adams, an inmate, mysteriously vanishes. All right, and that's Stack's little intro to the story. August 1979, 3 high school students enter a baseball park. It's nighttime and they're just like hanging out. They gather in the dugout to drink beer and chat. So it's like nighttime and they can kind of hide in there and not be seen. 3 masked individuals appear. They ask the kids for their wallets. And the kid who is the son of the police officer is the one that's like, no, like, leave us alone. So the robbers start walking away. And then suddenly one of them turns around with a fucking automatic gun and shoots at them. One boy dies and his name was Mike Ridenour. Eyewitnesses lead to the arrest of 3 robbers. They find out that the gunman is 16-year-old Mark Adams.
Oh my God.
And the description I wrote down for him is that he looks like an extra creepy Chris Humphries. Do you guys know what Chris Humphries looks like?
Is that a basketball player?
Who's Chris Humphries?
He was married to Kim Kardashian for a minute.
Oh,
Like,
so
literally, as I mentioned before, Mark Adams is extremely hard to Google. So I found only one very tiny tidbit about his history, and it said that he came from a large family. He barely knew his father and was raised by an abusive stepfather. As a teenager in Modesto, he hung around with the wrong crowd, quote.
That'll do it.
So Adams is given 25 years to life and sent to San Quentin. Stack says that over 3,000 hardened criminals are in San Quentin. Charles Manson was one of the well-known prisoners, as well as Sirhan Sirhan. Am I pronouncing that right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know who that is.
He killed Robert F. Kennedy.
Oh.
Yeah, Bobby Kennedy. That was our future.
Carol Chessman and outlaw Black Bart. Stack also says that a large percent are repeat offenders.
Are you looking up Carol Chessman?
Convicted robber, kidnapper, and rapist who is sentenced to death for a series of crimes committed in January 1948 in L.A.
Okay, but I think he was pretty well known, which is why they name dropped him.
Charles Earl Bowles was also known as Black Bart, was an English-born outlaw noted for the poetic messages he left behind after 2 of his robberies.
Right. Then Daniel B. Vasquez, a warden at San Quentin, explains that San Quentin is different because of its structure. It's basically like structured in a way that multiple armed guards can be looking over all the different areas all the time. Mm-hmm. And then I have a little note that Adams would have been up for parole in 2007. Mark Adams begins working in the academic department doing some sort of computer work. They didn't really explain what it was. The supervisor of the academic department says he was a model prisoner for 6 months under close watch. Aren't they always?
Mm-hmm. Really dealing with those floppy disks.
Oh, yes, I wrote that down. Oh, we'll put the floppies on the Instagram. I forgot.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
I miss floppy disks.
There was a pile of floppies. They said he would happily do overtime if there was a big project, and he basically just was a true dream to work with.
Of course. He's like, I'm going to do overtime so that I can really research your schedules, if that's cool.
So the same guy said they think this may have been how he began to plan his escape. He probably checked schedules and timing.
Okay.
Yeah.
June 10th, 1986, 4 years to the day he was locked up, Adams secures a pass allowing him to leave work early. He says he's going to the dentist. So at 2:30 p.m., Adams leaves the job and goes to the security checkpoint and then to the dentist's office. At 4:15, they do a routine head count. Unsolved Mysteries says if there's one person who isn't accounted for, it's always a simple explanation. The guards go around with photos of everyone to confirm that the right people are in the right cells. So they literally like check against the photo, inmate number, make sure it's the right person in the right cell. That's pretty intense, and 3,000 plus is a lot of checks.
That's a lot of Polaroids.
Yeah. At 4:45 p.m., Mark is confirmed missing. The prison is locked down inside and outside. Gates are sealed. All prisoners are confined to their cells. And there's like a great reenactment of them all being pissed off about that.
Oh, they're so mad. Oh, yeah, and I had written down, which I don't even have out, but on one of them, there's a guy sleeping in his bunk.
Uh-huh.
And the guy's like, the police officer's like, I need to see some skin, inmate. And the guy just pulls his blanket down and then pulls it back over.
Yeah, which I'm sure they did all the time.
Yeah.
Like, prove to me there's a person in there. Yeah, it's crazy.
And Mark didn't even try to prove he was in his, like...
No, he didn't set up the fake like, sock man.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, he's so dumb. He should have done that.
He's like, I'm out.
So an intensive search obviously begins, and there is no evidence of Mark or an escape route, which is crazy. In UM, they say authorities have 3 theories. One is that he put on civilian clothes and walked out with regular visitors. The second one is passing through... Oh, wait, sorry. If he did that, he would have had to pass through 3 armed gates. He would have had to show photo ID at the first 2. So that would have been really pulling something off. The second theory says he went over the 25-foot wall.
So once you get on that wall, 25 feet is a lot.
They said the chances he could have made the climb are extremely slim.
Yeah.
3 inmates tried it after this escape happened, obviously thinking this is how you do it, and they were immediately captured. One was even injured in the struggle with the officers. The third method they theorize is that he could have gained access to a vehicle. Every day, 235 vehicles pass through. Each one has to stop for a search. There's a remote chance he found a place to hide in a vehicle, but once the searches ended, he would have driven straight to freedom, is their quote.
Just like Annie.
I mean, they really they show them at least looking under the vehicle and all inside. Like, it would have been so hard for him to find a spot. Any of these 3 theories are very hard.
Yes. So, I mean, Mark Adams is a smart guy. Like, we're going to say that right now. He figured this shit out.
Yes,
and he was young, too. Yeah. So, and they said if there was a mistake in the security system, Adams would have found it and exploited it. Okay.
He was just that kind of guy.
Then we have the Unsolved Mysteries update, which says 7 years after his escape, Mark Adams was captured in Puerto Rico and returned to San Quentin. A year later, he was shot and killed by a prison guard when he assaulted a fellow inmate.
Forgot about that.
I read that.
Adams never revealed how he escaped San Quentin prison. So with my research, first I want to go back to Unsolved Mysteries' mention of the notable inmates. There is a huge long list. A lot of them we would probably have to look up to know who they were, but they were notorious at one time or another. There is one heavy hitter who has happened since this episode aired that was in San Quentin, which was fucking Richard Ramirez.
Oh, that's
the Night Stalker.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. And I wrote down just a couple more well-known ones that I thought would be interesting.
Yeah, cool.
Richard Trenton Chase, aka the Vampire of Sacramento.
Ew.
You guys remember him?
Yes.
What?
So he was an American serial killer who killed 6 people in the span of a month in Sacramento, and he was nicknamed the Vampire of Sacramento because he drank his victims' blood and cannibalized their remains. And then we have Rodney Alcala, who was the dating game killer. Do you remember him?
Yes, he was on it, and then he
killed,
He was
and
on
then
it
he was on
in
it.
the midst of his killing.
right.
Yes, and the girl was like, pass.
That's crazy. I forgot about him. Oh, this is so fun.
Yeah, this is
So
fun.
there's a whole bunch more, but I can't spend all the time on those guys.
That's what happens when your prison is near LA.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, I mean there are television and movie people who have been at San Quentin.
Absolutely.
So Mark Adams, let's remember who we're talking about. He is extremely hard to Google because he has an extremely normal name, and everybody in the world is named Mark Adams. And there was also another escapee named Mark Adams, which made my searching so fucking hard.
That sucks.
There also just was not a lot on the internet about him, which is weird to me. I could only find a couple of articles that barely mention what the fuck he was doing for 7 years in Puerto Rico and how he was captured. You said these are literally the only things I wanted to know, and it was so hard to find.
Yeah.
So one thing that was easy to find out was that when he was captured, he was living with his wife, Elsie Diaz, who is a Puerto Rico native. Now, you might be wondering, how did Adams and Diaz get together during those 7 years that Adams was on the lam? Well, honeys, they didn't. They got together in prison.
Yes. What?
She wrote him letters.
No,
She was in prison too.
at San Quentin.
I love this couple. I don't
Before
fucking
Adams
care.
escaped.
What?
She was a work program supervisor in the prison. It's kind of romantic. So she was a work program supervisor in the prison, and they don't say which work program, so I don't know if it was his or not, but regardless, they met there. So she was 24 years his senior.
Oh, mama.
Oh, honey.
Yes. And only 9 months after they met was when Adams fucking escaped. It is alleged that Adams hid out in Diaz's San Rafael apartment. But we all want to know how he actually escaped, right?
Yeah. How do you get out of San
Well,
Quentin?
too bad for you, because Diaz knows her Fifth Amendment rights and has never once made a statement about how he escaped.
Damn.
And neither has anyone else. And I Googled so long, and it's not there.
So much
Okay.
Googling.
Nobody
I'm not mad.
knows. Nobody knows how he got out.
All right, Diaz, I see you.
I know. So for 7 years, Adams was a free man living it up in Puerto Rico. What was he doing all that time? In Humancao, or Humansao,
This is
a
China?
Puerto Rican town.
What is happening?
Humansao is maybe the name of the town. I don't know how to pronounce it.
It's okay, just stop trying.
In Humacao, Adams took the name Michael Jacobson and got a supervisor's job at General Electric. He became active in his church and visited young people in custody on weekends.
I love how like former prisoners who escape do shit like that. Like,
Ha ha ha.
this is gonna get me off when they finally catch me.
Do you think
Well-
he told any of those inmates, like, I was in prison and I
Oh,
escaped?
doubt it.
No, I don't think
Because he was
so.
living it up in Puerto Rico. So and they said he even offered to donate one of his kidneys to a neighbor's daughter.
See, did you hear what your voice just did though? You were like, so he did offer his kidney.
But yeah, and so I wrote, it sounds like either he was trying to turn his life around, and definitely read things about him finding God, of course. I'm not sure if it was all genuine, but I mean, nobody knew who he was and that he was on the lam, so I don't know. Maybe it was.
I don't
Maybe
know.
he truly was like trying to turn his life around.
I mean, come on. If I were in prison, I would escape too.
Oh,
I could.
yeah, I wrote that too.
Yeah.
Like,
I was
I
like,
would do
what?
the same thing.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't
and
murder
I would
someone,
Get,
but-
my sentence would get extended and extended and extended because I would not stop trying.
No, me neither.
All right.
Now you know.
So
I know.
it wasn't until he was featured on a 1993 episode of America's Most Wanted that tips started to be phoned in and police were able to locate Adams in Humacao, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he shouldn't have gone to a United States affiliate.
Yeah, don't go to a Commonwealth.
Yeah.
So by that time, he was like well known in the community, and hundreds of supporters in Puerto Rico pled with the government not to extradite Adams back to California.
That's sweet, but that's not how it works.
Yeah. So what happened to Mark after his capture? Avi, he went back to prison. But I found it really weird that they put him back in San Quentin.
I was going to say the same thing.
which is the place he escaped from in the first place, and they still don't know how he escaped.
Is that like a living nightmare though? Like doing the same thing again?
I guess,
Like-
but also risky for them because
He could tell if there's a secret way to get out that they don't know about.
I
us,
don't
and then
think
he
it
could
was.
tell
I think the
someone
secret
else.
way was that he gained their trust.
Did they put him in solitary or anything?
maybe, and that's what I didn't know is if maybe
Yeah.
he was more secured at that time.
I would think so.
So he was held in San Quentin only one more year. When one morning in 1994, Adams entered an exercise yard and immediately charged prisoner Paul Green, starting punching him. Adams' lawyers said he feared attack by Green and another inmate was the reason for him jumping on the guy. Officer Timothy Reynolds, a trained marksman, said he saw Green apparently helpless and in danger. He yelled out to Adams to get down, fired 2 warning shots, then fired at Adams' leg from 25 yards away. Adams moved suddenly and was hit in the back of the head,
Ugh.
Reynolds said. And that's all his quote. So Mark Adams was shot dead because of a fist fight. So obviously Adams' family members, including his mother, Anna Crosby, and his wife, Elsie Diaz, were extremely upset by this news. I've been sitting here bawling ever since the lawyer called me, Crosby said. Nothing will bring my son back. I'll give them all the money in the world to get my son back. I wanted to prove they were wrong about what they did to my son. It was not right. I loved my son with all my heart.
Sad.
So the family decides to file a lawsuit. Their suit says that Officer Timothy Reynolds used excessive force when he fired 3 shots from 25 feet, striking Adams once in the back of the head. It also claims that California Department of Corrections was the nation's only law enforcement agency to maintain a, quote, sadistic policy, allowing guards to shoot inmates to halt fistfights. Those practices,
Fuck.
yeah.
The only state, not Texas, not
And this
Arkansas.
was from an article in 1998.
Wow.
So I had a really hard time finding what policy is now.
I'm sure it is not that policy.
It can't be. So those practices have allowed California prison guards to use gunfire to break up fights as opposed to tear gas, batons, other non-lethal force.
anything.
Yeah, they have those guns that shoot like rubber squares, so many things. Since 1989, 34 inmates had been shot to death in California's 33 prisons, and I think that was from the 98 article.
Shit,
So
yeah,
in
that
9
makes
years,
sense.
34 people killed by officers in prison. So
Wow.
the 10-member jury found unanimously that Timothy Reynolds used excessive force. They ruled against what was called by the attorneys as a negligent state policy on lethal force in prisons. Lawyers for Adams' estate said that California was the only state allowed to use guns with live ammunition to break up fights between prisoners. State lawyers said gunfire was allowed if a guard believed that an inmate was in danger of death or serious injury. Crosby, Adams' mother, Adams' wife Elsie Diaz, and Adams' estate were awarded damages from former Corrections Department Director James Gomez, then San Quentin Warden Arthur Calderon, and Reynolds, the officer that shot him. Jurors awarded $191,000 against the guard, Timothy S. Reynolds $450,500 against the San Quentin Warden, Arthur Calderon, and $1.66 million against James Gomez, the then director of the State Department of Corrections. Most of the award against Calderon and Gomez was for punitive damages. The damages total about $2.3 million.
And they got awarded that money?
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Defense attorney Leroy Lunabos of Petaluma was asked why he thought the jury issued such high damages award. He said, "I think the public is concerned that these guys are slipping through cracks. With the manner of crimes and how they are investigated by the department, there is a strange tolerance by the department on shooting deaths for breaking up fistfights."
There's
So
a
clearly
zero
this was not-
tolerance policy in California for literally anything.
Yeah.
They invented 3 strikes you're out. But it's okay if you shoot someone in a fist fight.
Yeah, and clearly by that comment,
Give
this
me
is
a-
not a one-off. He said, "I think we've sent the department a message with this verdict that they're not to break up fistfights with guns."
Do you think there could be any of those cases being like a suicide by cop situation? And
Yeah.
I don't know if
And
it
if-
is, but it would be interesting, like if it just starts to get around that they
This is
are
how you
doing
wanna
this
take- of
often.
course.
They'll just shoot. So if you
Yeah.
want to, and
It's true, because they would all know about it.
it's just a little weird to me that he would just charge someone. He'd
But-
already seen life outside.
Yeah.
Susan King, the state's lawyer, told jurors during closing arguments that the shooting was, quote, "a terrible accident, but an accident that was caused by Mark Adams." She defended the prison's policy on guns, saying that it has led to a reduction in prison violence. She said Reynolds had made a good faith effort to end Adams' assault and was upset over his death. But a former girlfriend of his, Pamela Jean Gallagher, testified that Reynolds bragged about the shooting. Adams had been on America's Most Wanted. People knew who he was and that he had been recaptured. So it was like bragging rights for him. Gomez, now a high-ranking official with the state public employees retirement system, referred questions to the Department of Corrections where officials were stunned by the verdict. "We were shocked by the verdict and based on the facts available, we disagree with it," said department spokeswoman Margot Bach. We are troubled by the punitive damages assessed against 2 outstanding correctional administrators. We are exploring every legal option available. And I couldn't find anything on that, like where it went after that in 1998. I found a few quotes from Adams' wife, Diaz, but this one was my favorite. She said, "We're not in the dark ages anymore. Okay, we know that inmates aren't there because they're singing too loud in church, but guards have other tools at their disposal." And that's it. I couldn't find anything on their
my
retaliation
God.
back. We are recording.
Okay, segment 3 is fraud, and it takes place in Medford, Oregon, September 24th, in 1984. Stephen Cox went missing. I have a whole bunch of things in my notes about shaving your head like Bruce Willis, but...
Yes. Okay, yes.
Yes.
can we-
Just know, gentlemen, that is an option.
It is an option.
You can just get rid of it.
But I think that most men who are balding know that.
That's called baking it, right?
Now. Is that
Yeah. That's when it's clean cut,
Oh, shit. That sounds like a prison term.
which,
Because Bic is like a razor.
No,
Okay. I didn't know that was
yeah, you got it. My husband did that to me once.
Not a fucking mole.
Not to me.
What? Your husband was?
But I like walked out and
Oh,
he
I
had a
remember.
cleanly shaved head.
What
And I
it,
was
like
like,
2
oh.
years ago?
And my husband's got hair.
Yes. he
And it
does.
was a surprise.
Yeah, that's shocking.
But he looks good both
looks good,
ways. Yeah.
Your husband.
He's a handsome dude.
He
He's a
does.
handsome guy. Yeah.
Shout out. Hey, babe.
Hey, babe. So, out of the gate, I'm going to say that the story here is that Stephen Cox and Eugene Richmond stole almost $4 million from the citizens of the city of Medford, Oregon.
Yikes.
They don't lead with that, and it kind of gets lost in the narrative, especially if it's me. So, that's what happened. It's fucked up. Let's talk about it. Do you guys remember Medford? Do you?
I do.
I've been there.
Right. Aside from that, Eliza did a truly compelling segment about, oh shit, fraud in Medford. So initially you want to be like, what the fuck, Medford? And I was. I was like, what a bunch of greedy, what the fuck?
Yeah, what's happening?
But no. It was the 80s. Everybody was fucking rich. Like, giant not cell phones. Giant car phones.
Yeah.
Just
Giant,
whatever.
yeah, brick phones.
Giant monies. Giant things. It was the 80s. Giant hair, power suits, yada, yada, yada. Greed is good. We've all seen the movie. So.
Giant foreheads.
That's Stephen Cox. Not generally the 80s.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Please keep talking because I hate this segment so much. I know I really hate it. Okay, so the citizens of Medford were ripped off again. This is like a really shitty sequel to a thing I don't fucking care about. It's like Pacific Rim 2.
They're still getting ripped off.
Who gives a fuck?
We're just stuck with
Oh, fraud segments.
Okay, I do. So while I was looking this up, I'm going to digress quickly. People in the forums were like, what the fuck is wrong with Medford?
Yeah,
Right?
good.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
everyone's like, what a bunch of fucking idiots. And then some astute person, probably from Medford, was like, had no money.
Yeah.
They would go into a town, they would do a segment, and then I bet they would say to the police, what else do you have? What else you got?
Yeah. What else can we do a segment on while we're already here?
While we're here.
Yeah.
While it
Ah.
costs us nothing, while we don't have to change locations. Which I was like, okay.
Brilliant.
Yes, I am not mad Medford.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We should look up the air dates
Well, also,
because I sent you guys that list.
coming up in, I think, 1 or 2 episodes, we have another case in Medford. And I think that I really think it's because once they were there, I'm sure some brilliant production assistant was like, hey, cops that we made friends with, do you have anything else a little wacky for us?
Good
And I'm
insight,
sure
girl.
The police officers were like, oh, yeah, have a seat. Get
Yeah.
cozy, because it's Medford. No,
And
just
they're
kidding.
also like, we're going to be on TV.
Yeah,
Yes,
of
totally.
course. Yeah, they're like, bring in Jane, the secretary. She's got a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know? So it wasn't just Medford. It was a lot of people in small towns being taken advantage of by finance guys. I'm not going to say white guys, but they're white. They're white guys.
They just so happen to be.
Yes. Show me somebody in that area that was not a white finance guy, and I will say, I apologize. I don't mean to generalize, you know. I mean,
But
white
you
men.
can't, Medford, can ya?
No, Medford, you can't. I saw that reenactment, and y'all,
Oh, gosh, that sea of white.
God, you're white.
White.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, 1981, going back, taking it back. Lorraine Rondeau was 68 and recently widowed with a $100,000 life insurance policy, which at first I was outraged because I was like, that's so much money, but it's really only $280,000 today by today's standards. So, she invested all of her money except for $5,000 with Stephen Cox.
No.
1976, a drunk driver left Michelle Witt paralyzed. Stack says crippled. I say, don't say crippled. Don't say that.
No.
I was like, can I even say paralyzed? I don't know the correct nomenclature. But
That's
I
an
know.
actual term.
Yeah, crippled, right?
No,
Not a
we're
thing.
not saying that anymore. Nope.
This is not Tiny Tim.
No.
Aw, you saw Christmas Carol. So, $75,000, it's $300,000 by today's standards,
which doesn't make any sense. Oh, 76. Okay, never mind. So I'm like, Google insurance payouts for drunk drivers. That does not seem like enough. Michelle invested with Stephen Cox as well. 200 citizens of Medford invested in SD Cox Associates, while Dennis Walker was also in Medford at the same time.
Sports balls.
Dennis Walker is the guy from our other segment,
Episode 5.
also about fraud in Medford.
Yes. I think it's episode 5.
I don't know.
It's episode 5. Yeah. So at the same time, there were 2 charlatans essentially ripping off the people of Medford.
Do you think there had to be overlap? Like some were like, I'm gonna give my rings over here, and I'm gonna invest my money over here. And
100%.
they got effed on both sides.
And I honestly think that there is no way that those 2 men
Didn't know each other.
no.
Yeah.
There's no way. I've never been
That's
to Medford.
interesting.
You guys have. How fucking big is it? And then
It's
how
not
big
that
was
big.
it in
No.
81?
It's not
Yeah.
teeny tiny, but it's
No.
not big.
So there's 2 finance guys in town.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
They know each other.
Yep.
That's, yeah. So Robert Stack asks, how did Stephen Cox get $3.5 million from the people of Medford? I wrote, good question, Bobby. Tell me more. Cox was a hometown boy. People knew him and trusted him. And one of the townspeople says, I hope if he's watching, he will come and deal with us honorably and face to face.
Uh-huh.
Which, if someone just stole $4 million from you,
Yeah.
they're not going to do
Don't
that.
hold your breath.
Yeah, definitely don't hold your breath. No, you can't. So, there are a lot of pictures of Stephen Cox. I think I threw a bunch at you. They're up there.
Oh, you know what I'm looking at right now is
I know.
it's covered up. All I'm seeing is
But
this.
but
the
the
chin?
really good one is
Oh, there he is.
Look at but just show her.
Look at that little dove.
Just look down here.
Dubbies.
oh I
Dubbies.
know. Oh, the good ones later though. The good ones later.
King.
Ew.
Oh, God.
No.
That is-
Sorry, Eliza just put the picture of Stephen Cox in front of her own face, and it's kind of like the right size, and it's just like he's here at the table with us.
Please take a
Ew.
picture.
Oh God.
Here.
Okay, we're gonna take a picture for you guys.
Mr. Stack says that Stephen Cox was captain of the football team, and yay for him. He implies that being captain of the football team and being popular makes you good at finance.
Obviously.
Totally.
You know who that actually reminded me of is the doctor, I can't remember, in Dr. Death who botches all the
Yes.
surgeries.
Mhm.
And he's also on the football team. He's not the captain. He's actually not very good.
No.
But he has some narcissistic thing about him.
Yeah.
He's like, but I'm going to be good and I'm going to keep doing it. And
Yep.
they just reminded me of each other. A
Yes,
little bit for some
absolutely.
reason.
That's super insightful. Yeah, because he has someone on the team,
Yes.
and Dr. Death says, like, he would do the same thing over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Yep.
And he wouldn't get that much better,
Yeah.
but he was convinced that if he just did it over and over again, he
Yeah.
would get
Yeah.
better.
He also wouldn't recognize when he wasn't good at things.
Exactly.
Totally. Like spines, for instance. In the reenactment, he's like on the phone wheeling and dealing, and it's like this huge
Room-sized
monitor.
computer.
Yeah, it's really funny. He's like, and I told you that I will only blah 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 and blah blah. It's like,
He's an asshole in the reenactments. I mean, the actor playing him is like really into it. And
like a finance guy.
yeah, they're just assholes, I guess.
They are. Sorry. I'm
Oh.
sorry. You're not listening to us.
I was gonna say, be careful now.
You
No.
can't talk
They're
to
not
people
listening.
that way. Like, he
Yeah,
was just
no.
rude to the people on the phone. Or I was talking about it with someone. Wall Street guys or women have that like addict mentality where like
One.
they
100%.
yeah
You are basically an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah,
and that's
investing.
what's adrenaline.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why you'll find that like a lot of people that do that job also do crazy shit, like jump out of airplanes.
Yeah, risk takers. big
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Big time risk takers. So, Sergeant Sweeney, who is the investigator on this, says that Cox's intentions were initially good. He had some luck with finance, but finance is fickle. And that's why everything goes bust every 30 years or so.
Yeah.
Things change.
Yep, and we never learn from our mistakes because we all want to be wealthy.
Yeah.
That is how this system keeps going. I am not the right person for this segment. Okay, so I don't know if you care, but I don't know anything about investing. So I don't know the difference between like investment, speculation, and literally gambling. To me, like giving your money to someone, we have a financial advisor, and I'm constantly like, what are you fucking doing?
Oh,
Is it just a gamble?
Is it?
Yeah.
Or is it like, are we all just pretending
Yeah.
that this money, like 401ks and investment funds and Roth IRAs and all of this stuff, to me, as someone who comes from an immigrant background where you're just like, give me my monies.
Yeah.
Let me keep my monies.
Yeah.
It's all theoretical to me, so I really don't.
No, explain what you found. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't know it.
As per usual, when I don't know something, I go to Reddit
Yep.
and I go to talk to me like I'm 5. It sounds ridiculous, but it is such a fucking awesome
It's a brilliant
Reddit
idea,
thread.
yeah.
It's really intelligent people explaining things to you in super, super easy ways to
It's great.
Okay, so I asked Reddit, what's the difference between gambling and investing? And here's the answer. Gambling is when you give your friend $10 and he flips a coin. If it's heads, you get 20. And if it's tails, he keeps it. Investing is when you give your friend $10 and he buys some candy bars to sell at school. He promises to give you $15 after he sells them. But there's a small chance that the teacher will take all the candy and he can only afford to pay you $5 back. Speculation is when you give your friend $10 and this is a little, for a hot Pokemon card. I don't know. I can't even equate that to something.
Hot Pokemon card.
I don't know. I don't know enough about collecting Pokemon or anything to be able to equate that to something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay. But speculation, you give your friend $10 for a hot Pokemon card.
For a hot musical theater ticket.
Yes. Yes. Because
Okay.
you think you can get $15 for it right away.
No, we wouldn't sell it. Never mind. That's
Oh,
not
no.
good.
You would pay $450 to get shitty seats to Hamilton and never, ever get them.
We did.
That's great. So we are not good at investing. So you give your friend $10 for a super cool thing that's happening right now. And you give them $10, but you think you can get $15 for it right away. And then someone buys it from you for $15, and then they try to sell it for $20, and so on, so on, so on.
And what's that one called again?
Speculation. You're
Oh.
speculating that something is going to continue to
Okay.
increase in value.
Okay. That makes sense.
Which does not make sense. Things don't always exponentially increase in value
Yeah.
forever and ever. So you have to find the time
To get out.
to sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been Financial Corner.
With a fucking person that
You're
doesn't
welcome.
know anything about it. So it's
Mhm.
just a $10 card.
Yeah.
Just because you want it.
Yeah.
What is there? There's like a the tulip bulb. Have you ever heard of the like great tulip bulb? So there was a hit. This was a very long time ago in Holland.
Oh, yes.
The
I know what you're
tulip
talking
bulb
about. Yeah.
hysteria,
Yeah.
That's like what every
Yeah.
that's sort of what every finance person uses as like the ground result. Like, let's start here.
Yeah.
Once upon a time in Holland in the 1800s, people were paying thousands of dollars for a single tulip bulb or the Beanie Baby craze of the
Yeah.
90s.
Good
Oh, I
good
had
example.
That Princess
Yeah.
Diana honey and a glass case.
There was a Princess Diana
You
Beanie
had a
Baby?
glass case?
Yes, a purple bear, and she had a white rose on her chest.
Oh.
So I think you know a little
Wow.
bit about speculation. Yeah. So basically,
When did Princess Diana die?
September of '97. So yeah, everyone's throwing money at something. It's not worth really anything, or it's just worth what it's worth. Everyone wants to make a but I can't even when I am intelligent. Talk
Everyone
about
wants to make
But
a butt.
Can we skip fraud segments from now on?
Yes.
No, we can't.
You're doing great.
Okay. Eventually, the cards are going to be worth $5 when reprints are issued, because more stuff gets released when people are making money. So they're going to release more tickets to your show.
Right.
They're going to put
Right,
more
right,
property on the market.
But everyone is hoping to make a ton of money before that happens. That's fucking speculation.
Okay.
Okay.
Fuck. All right. What are we talking about? Okay.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. We're bringing it back to Stephen Cox and SD Cox and Associates. Because we haven't even gotten to the Associates yet.
I gotta pee.
Fuck. Pause.
No, just go.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That gives me a time limit. Okay. So, Cox triples his business and brings in his friend Eugene Richmond to be his partner. Eugene is a little much about Steve. He cannot get over the fact that Steve was the captain of the high school football team. Says he really leaves an effect on people.
So fucking ridiculous.
Eugene, 1 minute is like, I idolized him. Whatever Steve asked me to do, I did. Which, like, is sort of an angle, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm not responsible because I idolized.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah,
And whatever he told me to do, I did.
It was all his
I'm a
idea.
victim too.
Yeah. So while Eugene is like, I just don't know anything. I love Steve so much. Sergeant Sweeney comes on and he's like, actually, Eugene Richmond was the forceful personality in the relationship and he was the money guy.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Richmond claims that he told everybody that invested that if SD Cox went belly up, they'd be broke. And then Lorraine Rondeau is like, oh, fuck no. He didn't fucking say that. Nope, he's a liar. Then Richmond backpedals a little bit and says, well, maybe I failed in my job to inform her, but I think like most people, she didn't want to hear it. So like he apologizes in that like, I'm not really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you're sad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you have sad feelings.
It's a
Yeah.
non-apology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry that you're upset. Maybe I did something wrong, but I probably didn't. You probably misunderstood me.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Obviously, Lorraine isn't telling the truth. Like, she is the generation, you're either in the Great Depression or you survived World War II on the European side. Either way, if someone hints that you're going to lose your money, you will say no.
Yeah.
The end. Like,
I'm surprised she even invested.
I am too.
He
And
must have been very convincing.
Yeah.
I think he was. I think he was
Not
super
tell her about
convincing.
the risk.
Actually, in the segment,
But
in
I
the
mean-
reenactment, I don't know if you guys remember, but he's like, did you get the flowers I sent?
Yeah.
For 1983, SD Cox was making money. They bought a restaurant and a bar, which, here you go, guys. Here's a freebie. If you have a financial advisor and he's investing your money in a restaurant or a bar, he's full of shit. Those are the worst investments that you can possibly make.
Yeah.
And I'm not fucking kidding.
Yeah.
He also invested in a video arcade, which probably made sense at the time until like a year later when fucking Nintendo came out.
Yeah.
And no one went to another arcade. And then he bought 2 jewelry stores that had lots of hundreds of thousands of dollars of gems.
Gem.
Yeah. Eugene explains to us that maybe that successful guy you see is not actually as rich as you think he is. And then Eugene laughs. Like it's funny. Like it's funny to pretend to be successful so you can take money from other people to keep pretending to be successful. I hate this guy.
You hate
I
Eugene.
can't believe he was
I
on the show.
I
I
can't
know.
believe- Like,
Yeah.
if I were him, the interesting thing is, like, he had a lawyer. He comes on trying so hard to be sympathetic, and anyone with any level of reason is just like,
Yeah.
you're a fucking piece of shit, dude.
Don't believe
Can't
it.
even try.
Yeah.
Pretend.
So, 84, Cox investments began to go bad. Eugene says that Steve wasn't a good businessman, even though literally 4 minutes ago, he said that he trusted him unequivocally, and he was his hero. So, pick a narrative. Cox and Richmond are now in a full-blown pyramid scheme. Eugene goes back to Lorraine and asks for her last $5,000.
No.
Lorraine.
The reason this is so upsetting is because in the reenactment, Eugene knows that this is tanking.
Yeah.
And he fucking goes to this woman after taking all of her money
Yep.
and asks aggressively for her last amount of money. He just like talks himself into, like,
he gaslit like a bunch of widowers and like disabled people in Medford, and then took his chances on the like national television, as if the rest of us were gonna be like, "Yeah, right,
Yeah.
like, get the fuck out of here." The
Oh,
ego,
he's the worst.
the like ego, but also the like, I don't know, like no accountability.
Don't play dumb. Yeah.
No accountability. That's
Yeah,
right.
he's like, to me, he's worse than Stephen
Uh-huh.
Cox because like
He
those
thinks he
two-
can like salvage his reputation.
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes to Lorraine, asks her for her money, and I'm like, please say no, and she says okay. She gives him the last $5,000. Then they cut to fucking Eugene, who has the balls to say, quote, "I can't tell you if she invested or not. I don't recall." Like, I'm sorry, Eugene. Are there so many fucking women named Lorraine Rondeau in Medford, Oregon, who just gave you their last $5,000 that
Come
you
on.
can't remember?
We know that was your last desperate attempt.
Yeah, like, fuck off. Ugh. So annoying. He's kind of telling the story the way that makes him a victim of Steve, but, like, he wasn't a victim. He knew stuff was going south, and he still took her money, and he acts like he had to leave town, too, or everyone would be mad at him. He has a quote like, "Well, I had to go, because if I didn't, they were going to come for me." What do you say? I didn't want to
I have
lynch
it
Mama?
somewhere. It says, I didn't want to be lynched or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he says he's afraid he'll get lynched.
Yeah. There's so many things that are wrong with that. So he says that he went over to Steve's house. Steve was like, "We got to get out of here, man. Are you coming or not?" And Eugene's like, "Well, I guess I had to go." And then Detective Sweeney comes on and he's like, "Nope." They were planning that for at least a month. Like, it was not a last minute get out of town. Like, nope. Detective Sweeney is amazing.
Yeah.
He is so great. Eugene goes through like a 20-minute thing, and then Detective Sweeney's like, "That's a lie."
Yeah.
The end.
Nope.
He's like fucking deadpan. He's like Fox Mulder. It's so good. Friday, September 21st, 1984, Richmond brings the staff in, and he says that he and Cox are going out of town on business until Tuesday. That weekend, Cox cleaned out $200,000 worth of jewelry, all of the records on floppy disks.
Oh, floppies.
Yeah.
So floppy.
Save those floppies. And he and his wife Deborah cleaned out their house and put everything in a truck, including Eugene, I guess. Who was their final destination was Hawaii. But what are you going to do with a moving truck on your way to Hawaii? Mr. Stack tries to tell us that Stephen Cox disappeared because he feared for his life. And I'm like, well, yeah, because there's an entire fucking town that would love to kill you.
Yeah.
So that's fine, but no. They try to, like, take it in a mafia direction. 10 months later, July of 1985, Deborah, Stephen Cox's wife, turns herself in. She wasn't wanted, but they wanted to talk to her, so she was probably, like, later. And then within the week, who shows up? Eugene. He surrendered himself.
Go back.
They say Richmond comes in to face the music, but he brings an attorney who basically doesn't let him answer any questions. Since Richmond wouldn't say anything to incriminate himself, he couldn't say anything about Stephen Cox. So he said nothing. One thing that Richmond did say was that in '83, Cox became involved with a, quote, mysterious investor who invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. As security for his investment, he took out a life insurance policy on Stephen Cox.
So you're going to take one out on your...
Yeah, well, I think that's great collateral.
Yeah, seems to make sense.
Don't lose my money, or you die. What? Is that not good?
No, yeah, I think that sounds reasonable.
It'll work.
I mean, it works
It'll
for
work.
me. So, I mean, it's hysterical.
Apparently it's allowed to take out a life insurance policy on someone who's not your family.
It's
No. This is '83.
Yeah.
Anything was possible.
Anything
then.
goes.
Well, what about fucking Dave Davis
Yeah.
burning down the barn across
I
the
was
street from his
just
house
thinking
with
that.
insurance?
Yes.
You could just basically be like, I own that, and then fucking
I
set it
want
on fire. Sweeney says that the, quote, fucking mysterious investor isn't mysterious. He says that they know who he is, and they have his name. So he would have to be a total idiot to fucking go after Steve or his family. Richmond pled guilty to racketeering and got 2 years in prison. Oh, my goodness. I hope he's okay. I don't know. Do you guys know what the RICO Act is?
No.
So RICO,
I just know it from Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
So-
I've heard that
Yeah.
word.
So
It's
basically,
an acronym.
the RICO Act, it stands for Racketeering, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations
Oh.
Act. It became law in 1970, and it was basically to go after the mafia. If you're a mafia head, along with telling people to murder other people, you're doing a bunch of other shady shit. And it's a lot easier to prove financial shady shit than it is to prove conspiracy for murder. That's actually one of the most difficult things to prove. So they created this RICO Act to sort of encompass you're threatening this person, you're money laundering, you're bringing this money to this location, and then you're cleaning it up. Okay, so Richmond pled guilty 2 years in prison for racketeering. The judge thought that Eugene was so shady that he suspended the sentencing to make Eugene take a polygraph test so that he could prove that Eugene could prove that he didn't know where the $3 million was. Weasley Eugene then tells us that Stephen Cox is the one in prison right now. He's the one doing the time right now, and he will continue doing time until he turns around and faces the situation. It's like,
No, he's free. He's
yeah, he is 100% not in prison right now. That's the issue. Eugene, thanks. So Stack gives Stephen's physical stats. Here comes the picture. But he also includes that he might be wearing a toupee. And they show an example of what he might look like with a toupee, and it is a thing of fucking majesty.
But just the cut and paste nature of this.
Oh, Lord.
Like, this is what he might look like now if he had a toupee.
Okay, so, update. A very untoupeed, also most of the update is in the episode.
Yeah.
Lucky for me. A very untoupeed, but bearded and mustachioed, Stephen Cox was arrested in Lake Mead, Nevada, 5 days after he fled Boise, which we had no idea he was in Boise, but he was. He checked into a Lake Mead hotel under the name of John Strauss and listed an Arizona address. Edna Reed. Edna. The hotel manager says he was not, quote, the normal guest. He stayed in his room all day long and would only leave at night. And I'm like, Edna's like, how could anyone want to miss all the daytime fun of Lake Mead, Nevada? Who could resist? But then it turns out Lake Mead is a state park. I didn't know that. So I talked a lot of shit.
Probably lots of daytime fun.
Yeah, there's fun. It's literally a state park. You, of course, you go out during the day. Oh, I have a recommendation. This is an important lesson if you're on the run. And no one bothers to tell us how long Cox was on the run at this point. But if you're on the run and you have $200,000 worth of gems with you, go to a country that doesn't have an extradition policy. Yeah, there are over 70 countries that don't have treaties. And most of them are not good for us as Americans or women. But there are a couple. Bosnia, Herzegovina. It's amazing. Montenegro, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. These countries don't outwardly hate you. They won't kill you, probably. Edna Reed watched Cox for 2 weeks. And when he placed his trash in someone else's receptacle instead of his own, she went and emptied the trash and, quote, found a crumbled up letter. Edna. Own it, honey.
Just accept it.
You are a fucking crime aficionado.
She is. She loves a mystery.
She's like, I just happened to find this crumbled up letter, and then it happened to uncrumble itself in front of me in my hand.
Oh, no. She's like, I saw him put that trash in the wrong room, and I went up there right away.
It's so funny, yeah. Like, he walks, he's room 28, and then he walks to room 30. Yeah. And Ed is like, wait a minute.
Where you going with that trash?
So, she read the letter. Just, you're curious human.
Yeah.
Yes. So, read the letter, curious human being that she was, and it mentioned the Unsolved Mysteries show being a bombshell. What are you doing, Stephen Cox? Burn that letter, bro, or mail it. What? You don't know Edna's watching you? You're in a tiny hotel.
You're being watched by Edna always.
Always.
Yes.
Safe to assume.
Always behave like Edna's watching you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Always behave like Edna's watching. The Rangers ran the plates. Plates didn't come back to being owned by John Strauss. Ranger Robert McKeever tells us on the morning of the 14th, doesn't give the month. I love how, like, in most of this, they're just like, and on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Fucking fuck.
They went to the hotel to see if they could identify the guy. He was gone. He had been gone for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'm sure we all know that. Edna knew that. The next day, they found him in the parking lot of the Gold Strike Casino and pulled him over. So he gave the fake license of Robert Davis, yet another fucking alias for this guy, and they ran it through NCIC, and it came back as one of Stephen Cox's aliases. So they arrested him and took another ridiculous photo with his MAGA hat. And then they searched his car and they found a small fortune in jewelry, collector's baseball cards, sports ball,
Crazy.
and gold coins, silver coins, and lots of cash. Cox was not that bright apparently, and charisma can only get you so far. Okay, so I'm going to do an update, but that was super updatey. All of that came from the show, so I don't have a ton to say. There is a theory that Dennis Sportsball Walker and Stephen Sportsball Cox knew each other. Of course, small town, two white finance guys, quote unquote, making everyone rich with IOUs.
Yeah.
Yes. There is a theory that Walker was killed and that it wasn't a suicide.
Right.
Which kind of plays into the Stephen Cox's nefarious investor kind of thing. Okay, whatever happened? Let's see. Eugene Bud Richmond is 67, and he's living in Oregon. Deborah, Cox's wife, is also 67, remarried, and living in Oregon. Neither of them are in Medford, but they're both in cities here. Eugene opened up a computer repair company, but it's closed because no one does that anymore. He's been in small claims court quite a few times, but like I think if you have a shitty computer and you bring it to someone to fix and they don't fix it and they charge you, you're gonna take them. You know, it was for like $800.
Yeah.
Yes, Eugene is not on Facebook. His wife was until 2015. They were married the entire time through the whole Medford affair. She stayed with him. So she was kind of like a party to it. She definitely wasn't like,
knew something.
I hate all this money. Stephen Durrell Cox, middle name Durrell. First of all, he was on the run for 4 years, living in Boise, Idaho, under the name of Robert Bradley Davis. How you would leave Medford, heading for Hawaii, and end up in Boise is a question for the fucking ages. But there you go. After the UM airing on November 17th, 1988, he left Boise. So he was like, fuck.
Yeah.
This place is too big. They're going to find me.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's like, let me go to Lake Mead. No one will see me there. So he got arrested in Lake Mead. He served less than 3 years and was ordered to pay $3.6 million in restitution, which is fucking insulting because there was no way that he's going to do that. Like, if I was one of those people, I'd be like, great, thanks. Like, don't fucking act like this guy's going to fucking do that.
They do that so often, and I'm always like, why even?
I know. I think it's like symbolic or something, but it's just like, they don't have it.
Yeah.
So after his run-in with the law initially, Cox kept on the straight and narrow, and he worked every day to pay off his debt with the good people of Medford. Just kidding. He's a finance guy. He was arrested again in 2005 at age 55 in Garden City, Idaho, on charges of grand theft, forgery, and computer crime, which is so cute.
Wow.
Computer crime.
And parole violation. Somehow Stephen Cox became the treasurer for a company called Wholesale Diamond and Gold, which, like, I feel like you would
Not hire him to be.
maybe. Like, that's kind of
Probably not.
like, let me be in charge of the
Just
money.
Run a quick background check.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're a diamond and gold company. It's 2005. You have no resources?
No.
You should have, like, someone on task.
Ridiculous.
Okay. Cox had worked for the company for about 10 years, and his employers began to notice problems with the books. Also around this same time, Cox was spotted driving around town in luxury cars.
Ooh.
Yeah. Company officials eventually discovered that Cox had spent just under 3 years in prison in Oregon for selling unregistered securities. Somehow, and this goes back to his sports ball charisma, Cox managed to downplay his role in the Medford scam. So they let him keep working. But the monetary losses eventually became too much, even for the diamond and gold people. And his employers got him arrested on suspicion of internet crimes, theft, forgery. He funneled around $150,000 into his own accounts from the company, and that's a conservative estimate. When they raided his apartment, they found that he was paying $155 a month to return the $3.6 million that he stole.
Oh my God.
Fuck that guy. So Stephen Cox married a woman named Lisa Klein at some point and took her last name. So we have a million aliases right now. It is like
What a progressive man, though.
I know.
Yeah,
I
really.
know that was all about because he loved her.
It's
and
because he's a
really-
feminist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was a true feminist. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that he was a
to hide.
thieving monster. Not at all. So yeah, it's very hard to find something out about someone that has 7 aliases. Let's see. There are no interviews with Deborah, now Debbie, or Eugene, now Bud, about why they decided to turn themselves in, which is a bummer. But Stephen Cox, I believe, died in August 2015 at the age of 64 in Idaho. He isn't even on Find a Grave.
Oh, come on.
No obit. No nothing. I searched
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah.
10 different aliases on Find a Grave. And that is the medium and satisfying ending to the missing Medford millions. 2 finance guys went to jail for less than 24 months after stealing almost $4 million from retirees, widowers, and the disabled. One went on to continue scamming, and the other is living in a city close by to us with his family, pretending like it never happened. Justice. Doesn't it feel good? There you go.
Wow.
All right, you ready for
Barbara Jean.
the saddest of all?
Oh.
All right.
I'm excited to hear anything about this since didn't say anything.
Okay, we have to be very put together for this one.
Yes.
It's very sad and nothing is
do.
funny.
Yeah.
So, okay. Re-recording?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for the 4th segment, this is the story of Barbara Jean Horn. It's definitely, I would say, the saddest story we've had to cover so far on the podcast. And yet again, Unsolved Mysteries saves the most heartbreaking segment for last. Sorry, everyone.
To bring you right down.
Yeah. So, this is a different segment for Unsolved Mysteries in that Robert Stack comes on appealing for the public's help in finding the man who murdered a 4-year-old girl in Philadelphia. A composite is shown in the segment, and Robert Stack also talks with Lieutenant Arthur Durant, who is an investigating officer on the case. So basically, it's like an interview with him. And it's very short, probably only 5 minutes of the whole segment, if that.
Yeah. But we've never seen Stack interviewing before.
No, we haven't. Yeah, so Lieutenant Durant tells a shortened version of the story of her murder, which I'll tell you. And as he's talking, there are some photos of sweet, sweet Barbara Jean on the screen. Oh, she's just a doll. And there are no reenactments in this segment. So yeah, get ready. It's just very, very sad. So here's the story. On July 12th, 1988, and I just have a little note here that this segment aired in November of 1988, so they're appealing for help only a couple months after her murder. Sorry.
Okay. That makes sense why it seemed like it was more
Yeah.
like added on at the end.
Yes,
'Cause
and
it
I
wasn't
think
a
it
full
must have
segment.
been added on at the end of yours because it says November of 1988. So
Oh.
I think yours and this one at least were originally in the same episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is like we were saying when they picked up on America's Most Wanted and how you could maybe make something happen really
Yeah.
quickly if you
Right.
outsourced it.
Yeah, they're like starting to get a following and
Yeah.
thinking
The
they can
original,
help.
like,
Yeah.
outsource the help, you know.
So on July 12th, around 3 p.m., while her mother is at work and her father is inside, Barbara Jean goes to play outside. And her father goes out to check on her about 45 minutes after he said, yes, she could go play out in the front, and he was unable to find her. He becomes frantic and starts checking with neighbors and calls her mom, and the mom says, okay, keep looking and I'll come home. And eventually he calls the police. So then about 2 hours later, Barbara Jean's body
No, 2 hours.
is found 2 blocks from her home inside a large cardboard box that originally held a 13-inch Hitachi color television. The box had been placed on the curb, and the family that lived, like, not that owned the curb, but whose house was what the TV was placed in front of, one of them was like, someone just put a large box out front of our house. And so the man goes to check, and he like looks inside and yells back to his family.
No.
This is not, so some of this, because that segment was so short, some of this, it's not going to be like how we normally do
That's
it. I'm just
fine.
kind of weaving in my own stuff I found. But
Yeah.
he yells back, there's a baby in this box. Call
Oh
the
my
police.
God. That is.
Yeah, and then he yells, the baby is dead.
My God, it's so awful.
It's very
heart-stopping.
It's horrible. And there's a lot of details in this case that I'm just not going to go into as a mother of a child. I don't want to think about it. So she, when the police came, they noted that she was naked and had been bludgeoned to death.
Oh my God.
So 4 eyewitnesses observed a man carrying a large cardboard box down that street, and they it appeared to them that the box must have been heavy. A few eyewitnesses saw a man carrying a box, but then also switching between setting it down and dragging it by a piece of plastic that was inside the box, and then picking it back up to carry. The man was thought to be about 25 to 35 years old, a white male, around 5'8" and 180 pounds, with sandy brown hair. So Lieutenant Durant, who's on the Unsolved Mysteries episode, appeals for the public's help, but I fact-checked Lieutenant Durant because he says if anyone saw someone saw what could have happened to her on January 12th, but it was actually July 12th.
Oh.
I know. He says, like, right before he stops talking.
Yeah, I wrote down January.
Girl.
I know, but it's July.
Go on.
Yeah.
I just said, whoops. Because it's not easy to edit.
No.
TV back then. Okay, so update. This is the update that kind of comes on. 4 years after her death, a neighbor named Walter Ogrod was arrested for the murder of Barbara. He lived across the street from Barbara and shared the home with another family that had a young boy living there that Barbara would often play with. It took police officers 4 years to make any arrests in the case. And for a long time, that was because they were looking at the father, who, actually is the man who lives in her home and is married to her mother is actually her stepfather, who I
not
think
her
she called
biological father.
her dad.
Okay.
And so I think for a long time, the police were trying to
Yeah. They'll always
find
look
him
at this
guilty.
stuff.
Yeah. So they spent a long time doing that. They arrested Walter Ogrod with 0 physical evidence, and no physical evidence has been tied to anyone, including
Wow.
him. Okay, so there's a lot that has happened since with Walter Ogrod, and I'm going to talk about some of that, but I just want to say that this is not about him. This is about Barbara Jean Horn and finding justice for her, and it's horrible and so very sad, and she was their only daughter, and it's just so heartbreaking. So at he's arrested in 1992. In 1993, he goes to trial. He was almost found not guilty, but a juror, who was retired fireman Alfred Shukzak, changed his mind at the last second when the verdict was being read.
Wow.
So because he blurted out that he had changed his mind, his trial was a mistrial.
Oh my God.
Right as the verdict is being read that he's not guilty. And it's...
How could you find him not guilty?
So it's thought that he was... I'll go into that a little bit, but basically his defense argued that his confession was coerced. So, and I skip ahead a little bit, but yeah, he...
Yeah, you can't
Here,
fight that.
I'll talk about it in a second.
Sure.
Yeah. So then in 1996, he went on trial again. This time, a jury convicted him of murder and involuntary deviant sexual intercourse after less than 2 hours of deliberation and sentenced him to death. Okay, so in this trial, the key testimony came from a jailhouse snitch. Who's a very, very popular and famous jailhouse informant who's been part of many cases, but then a few years after this case, all of his credibility basically went out the window for several reasons.
People who constantly have secret information.
Yeah.
So
what are you, a priest?
This guy's name is John Hall, who's nicknamed the Monsignor for his incredible ability to elicit confessions from fellow inmates in major cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So that's a problem. Like the biggest reason why a jury was able to sentence him to die within 2 hours was because of this testimony from a jailhouse snitch. So, and I think in that second trial, they didn't focus as much on the supposed coerced confession. So I'll talk about that. Ogrod appealed, of course, arguing in part that police detectives coerced his confession and that his attorney was ineffective. So very similar to Brendan Dassey of Making a Murderer. And so there's a lot going on right now, actually, about Walter Ogrod because a new documentary has come out about him. It's not like a movie documentary, but there is a series on HLN, which is Headline News Network, called Death Row Stories. And they aired in April 8th of this year a 1-hour documentary episode called Snitch Work.
Wow.
And I don't have any way to watch this show. Looking at tvguide.com, it seems to re-air in the middle of the night sometimes. So if you have the ability, you could probably set DVR to watch it. Anyone who has DVR, but I looked and this will come out after that, but it's coming on again December 2nd. The show is called
Snitch Work?
The show is called Death Row Stories, and the episode that features him is called Snitch Work.
Wow.
It's very heavily in favor of Walter Ogrod's innocence.
Obviously.
There's also a lot of death row work that's done about him because they at least feel like he shouldn't be on death row since there was never any physical evidence against him. So I'll just tell you how kind of this, one of the biggest supporters of him is a writer named Tom Lowenstein. And he wrote to Ogrod and other death row inmates in 2001 as he was beginning to write a book just on the death penalty. And Tom Lowenstein's actually very interesting because his father was a renowned civil rights activist and U.S. congressman whose name was Allard Lowenstein, who was murdered by a mentally deranged gunman in his Manhattan office. Yeah. So Tom Lowenstein actually seems like a very nice guy. He's got an interest in true crime for a very specific, close to home reason.
Yeah.
So he goes to interview Ogrod just about the death penalty, but as Walter Ogrod's talking to him just about his own case, he's like, there's no way that this guy confessed to this. They have the wrong man. So Walter Ogrod is, I couldn't find anything specific, but a lot of people report that he's on the autism spectrum and might be a little mentally impaired as well. So again, very similar to Brendan Dassey, a super low IQ.
Let's take advantage of this guy.
Sure. Yep. When the police originally interviewed Walter Ogrod and eventually got him to sign a confession, he had been up all night because he was a truck driver. They came and took him in for questioning, and they kept interviewing him for another 14 hours.
And were they only interviewing him because he was the neighbor, or?
Well, they had interviewed all the neighbors right after the murder happened, but I think they stopped looking at the stepfather. They couldn't find anything on him, and they needed to find somebody else who it could be. They knew that she had gone over to that house before. Yeah. So they I'm not saying he's not guilty at all. I don't know, but I think they set their sights on him a little bit.
Okay.
That's what people think. So, and you can read a lot about this. I wish I had found this before yesterday, so I could have read this book. But Tom Lowenstein, the writer, he wrote a book, The Trials of Walter Ogrod, that just covers all of this. So anyway, he had read that confession that took 14 hours to get out of Walter Ogrod that he did eventually sign. And a lot of it said things like, this, you don't understand how hard this is for me, like very emotive language that then when he talked to Walter Ogrod, he's like very like people on the autism spectrum. Some people, they'd have like, there's a little bit of a lack of emotion and not able to like think about how it would be making other people feel. And there was just like, it did not match up with the person that he was talking to. Yeah. And people in Walter Ogrod's like direct life had been saying that forever. Like, there's no way that he would have said these things. That is not who he is. Even if he did commit this murder, he would not say it like this. He wouldn't explain it like this. So yeah, Lowenstein thinks Ogrod is innocent. Because of his way of speaking and lack of emotion. So both the book and this documentary program raised serious doubt about the police work of the homicide detectives who, after the murder trial had grown cold for 4 years, took in Ogrod, a then 25-year-old neighbor who worked as a truck driver and is described by Lowenstein as slow. They reportedly kept him awake for 14 hours, told him he was repressing memories of killing Barbara Jean, and finally got him to sign a confession. So they, very similar to Brendan Dassey, like we're probably feeding him some information. Yep.
It's insane.
It's insane. And there was no lawyer present, and I don't know if it's on tape. And of course the prosecution is like, no, it was him. How would he, because I mean, just like Brendan Dassey's, supposed confession is full of like horrible, very specific things that they did. Yeah.
How would they know?
Exactly. That's what they say. So they say for his, like, he says that he lured her in the basement and he tried to sexually assault her. And when she screamed, he hit her on the head with probably a metal rod from his weight set, which the medical examiner did rule that she was probably killed by blows to the head from something consistent with a metal rod. So they were like, how would you know that? But it's been 4 years. Who knows? And who knows what they fed to him?
Right. They were probably leading him.
Yeah. Okay, so just a lot's happening like right now about this case and about Walter Ogrod, which it's really hard for me because when I watch, I've talked about like rewatching or watching the second season of Making a Murderer and how much I love that and how I don't think like either of them should be in jail for the no evidence that they have against them, like literally zero physical evidence. But then that second season shows so many people who are very upset about the possibility of them getting out of jail and they think they're just innocent. And to me, I'm like, oh, they just want to believe that they've caught someone. But then when I read this case, I'm like, I don't know. This guy just sounds innocent to me. Like I'm almost on those people's side. Does that make sense? The DA's office is now formally reviewing Ogrod's conviction, which his current lawyers have been appealing for more than a decade. Wow. And then the DA's office has also confirmed that prosecutors will no longer fight to block the long and so far unsuccessful effort by Ogrod's lawyers to have key evidence in the case, including fingernail scrapings from the victim, undergo state-of-the-art DNA testing. So they've been blocking that forever.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, maybe, but if they allow them to test it, at least it will just prove that he is guilty, or it will show that someone else did it. Like the right person should be in jail. But of course the defense believes it will prove their client's innocence. So, and then also like the box that she was found in hasn't been like tested with, more state of the art testing for a while. So, the documentary.
How can this not be like a high priority?
Yeah.
I know. I think, well,
It's a
you know what
small,
helps?
tiny 4-year-old girl.
You know what helps is this book and then this show. And then now the DA is like, okay, now we'll look at it. It suggested several other possible killers, including Raymond Sheehan, who pleaded guilty to the 1987 rape and strangulation of 10-year-old Heather Coffin in her Frankfurt home, which is not far away from Barbara Jean's home. That case remained unsolved until 2003 when DNA evidence led police to Sheehan. The episode also shows that there were a few witnesses who, in a lineup or in through photos, they identified Sheehan as the man who was carrying the TV box with Barbara Jean's body inside. No one identified Walter Ogrod.
Oh my God.
So I just wanted to end with what Barbara Jean Horn's tombstone says. So it says October 18th, 1983 to July 12th, 1988. So she's almost 5. So from her family, Barbara Jean, our special little girl, you gave us a lifetime of love, happiness, and joy in the short time you were with us. You are forever in our hearts and sadly missed by all. We love you. And then from the community, Barbara Jean, a special little girl, you've touched us all and will forever be remembered. It's just so sad. So, God, I hope that her family is doing okay, and I hope that they find the right person. I don't know if it's Walter Ogrod. I don't know, but I hope that the right person is in jail.
That was excellent research.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's crazy that some of it's going on now.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's another one, like I said, with my first segment. I'll keep an eye on like what the DA does in this case and update.
Put in an alert.
Oh, great idea.
Google search
a
alert.
Google's alert? I'll do
I
that.
have Google's alert on like 1,300 different things.
Yeah, I've never done that, but I should.
Cupcakes to murder. Cupcakes. How I Google it.
Google alert for chocolate cupcakes, honey. Okay, Sharzy?
I don't know.
Just no Sharzy Feelsy this time?
I mean, it's been
It's
really
real
long
hard.
week for me.
Okay, you just have no Sharzy Feelsy. My recommendation, and probably everybody's read it already, but is Lauren Groff's short story collection, Florida. It's so good. She wrote Fates and Furies. It's incredible. It's just, she's incredible. And like I haven't read a short story collection in a really long time, and it's a very nice way. That's like all I used to read. So it's nice to get back into that and just enjoy a very, very well-written story that's only like 4 pages, but contains multitudes. Thanks for listening, everybody. Come back for episode 9. We've got 4 segments in that episode. Carlin has 2. Yeah, sorry, honey. Don't forget to post your school photos, #resolve to be awkward, tag us. We want to see them. We love getting your messages. They're the best. We text them, group text to each other. It's so fun. Thank you so much for listening and liking our show. Email us if you have anything you want to say to us. You can contact us at resolvedmysteriespodcast.com. We have a P.O. box. Allison, have you checked that P.O. box lately? Is it just full of dust and crickets? Damn it.
It's so disappointing.
So if you want to fill it up, it's 14005 Portland, Oregon, 97293. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. That would be great. And for every review this month, we're donating to CASA. Follow us on Instagram. That's where we post. That's where we're most active, I would say, that, and Facebook. Follow us on Instagram at @re_solved mysteries, Twitter on @resolvethepod, and Facebook @resolvethepod. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.